What's going on? Wednesday show. My pleasure to be back here with you on Brett Breaks Things. Thank you so much for joining me once again. Football tomorrow. I'm not going to spend some time. Football tomorrow. A lot of you guys have helped out the show, and I really appreciate everybody who's donated. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Still making it through the thank yous. To those of you who have joined us over the last month or so, and you have not donated, that's fine. That's fine. I'm more than pleased to be bringing you this show. But if you find value in it and you would like to see it continue, you can have a direct hand in seeing it continue by donating. Go to brettbreaksthings.com, hit the donate button, and thank you. We're going through some changes here around the studio. We need your support now more than ever, and I really, really appreciate you guys very much. Most of you have migrated from Randy's channel over to mine. That's fine. We've kept it going longer than we anticipated. Honestly, it's because we really appreciate you so much, and we don't want to spoil a good thing. And if a lot of you are still having problems getting over, you're scared of, not subscribing or unsubscribing or not going there anymore and coming to our page, just try to get good with it over the next couple weeks. We'd love for you to come over. The more people that come over, the better our numbers are. And the more easily we can monetize our YouTube channel, and you can help the show that way. That is a way to help the show survive, by coming over and being a part on our channel. And thank you, everybody who's joining us. Getting a lot of really good feedback online, in real life. Just a lot of great feedback, and I appreciate all of you with the kind words and the support. All right, we got that out of the way. We're going to start today with, I'm going to start with somebody who is really representing how I feel. I mean, some of the people we send to Congress, some of the people we send to the Senate, they have our best interest at heart, but we don't hear them say the things we need to hear them say. And yesterday somebody said the things that need to be said the way they need to be said them sometimes, right now. And we'll get into the details of what he's saying, but I want you to hear this. I want you to hear this. Whoop, wrong one. I forgot to change the cart. That took some of the steam out of that. Here we go. It's a little more lengthy than some of the videos we play, but I feel like it's necessary.
The Democratic Party needs a wake-up call. I see law firms bending a knee to this president, not caring about the larger principles, that those free speech rights, that you could take on any client. Why are you bending the knee? I see universities that should be bastions of free speech bending at the knee to this president. I see businesses taking late-night talk show hosts off the air because they dare to insult a president. I see people who want mergers suddenly think that they have to pay tribute to this president. And what are the very people here elected to defend the Constitution of the United States saying, oh, well, today, let's look the other way and pass some resources that won't go to Connecticut, that won't go to Illinois, that won't go to New York, that will go to the states he likes? That is complicity with an authoritarian leader who is trashing our Constitution. It's time for Democrats to have a backbone. It's time for us to fight. It's time for us to draw lines. And when it comes to the safety of my state being denied these grants, that's why I'm standing here. Don't question my integrity. Don't question my motives. I'm standing for Jersey. I am standing for my police officers. I'm standing for the Constitution, and I'm standing for what's right. And dear God, if you want to come at me that way, you're going to have to take it up with me, because there's too much on the line right now in America. As people's due process rights and freedom of the speech rights and secret police are running around this country, picking people up off the streets who have a legal right to be here. There's too much going on in this country. When are we going to stand together for principles that I just heard that we're agreed with? When are we going to stand together? If we don't stand as Democrats, we deserve to lose. But if we stand united, if we stand strong, if we stand with other people, if we tell with a chorus of conviction in America what this president is doing is wrong, if we stand up and speak that way, dear God, we will win. Like all of those people that are ancestors who joined hands together and said, we shall overcome. No, not on my watch. I'm protecting Jersey today. I'm protecting our Constitution today.
Totally crashing out. Sixth gear, straight to sixth gear. And I'm here for it. I'm here for it, Cory Booker. We're going to talk about why he's so fired up. How did we get there? How did Cory get there? He said a bunch of interesting things there. And by the way, he talked about Colbert being let go because he dared to make fun of the president. Go check out the latest South Park. You want to see dare to make fun of the president, go check out the new South Park. You got to have Paramount Plus to get it. I don't work for Paramount Plus. I will not get anything for promoting their brand, but it's worth it just for this South Park episode that was just played to get your Paramount Plus subscription. I promise you. You want to see dare to make fun of the president, they dare. Yeah, he's fired up. He's fired up. Unfortunately for me, as he's giving that very fiery speech, he said one thing, if our tone was right and we're together and we stand for the people of this country, we will win. Not with a Republican majority across the board. It's a little hollow, and I hate to say it, and I hope he means it. I'm glad he feels that way, and I hope to God he's right, that kind of rhetoric, that kind of zealousness, and, standing up for the American people and doing what's right, I'm hoping that will have an effect on some legislation. But honestly, with a Republican House, a Republican Senate, and Donnie in the administration, I don't know how many W's there really are out there to grab. So what he's talking about, what led to this? Okay, there were seven bipartisan law enforcement bills, 7 bipartisan law enforcement funding bills that they wanted to pass through the Senate. Now, they had gotten unanimous consent. That means everybody just agrees, right? No pushback. No pushback from the committee, no debate, no cloture needed, no pushback, unanimous consent. Everybody agrees to these things. It happens on less controversial bills, stuff that isn't quite as, divisive, right? Stuff that's a little more innocuous that everybody agrees should pass. That's what passes in unanimous consent normally. And these 7 bills had gone through with unanimous consent. Okay. Here's the rub, and here's how we got here. The bills, and there's 7 of them that were presented. Cory objected to 5 of them. He objected to Protecting First Responders from Secondary Exposure Act, Retired Law Enforcement Officers Continuing Service Act, the Reauthorizing Support and Treatment for Officers in Crisis Act, Strong Communities Act, and Protect Our Children Reauthorization Act. Now, you may be saying to yourself, why would he object to these things? Why would he object to these things? His colleagues are wondering why he objects, and we'll get to that. But I just want to let you know how we got here. Why would he object to this? In the committee, he didn't object. Okay, so in the committee, he didn't object, and there's a reason he didn't object. Okay, there was a committee where amendments could be presented to these bills, objections could be made, debates could be had. But because he didn't object and nobody did, it went through on unanimous consent. Here's the thing. He couldn't object, and he couldn't put forth a debate or any type of objection because he wasn't there. He wasn't there. Okay, he was out in his state. It's where it gets kind of dicey for me. So he waited till it was about to go through on unanimous consent. There was supposed to be no debates, no objections. It was just supposed to go through. Fast tracked. Unanimous consent is used. It is used. In the U.S. Senate, it can be used to skip debate, amendments, cloture. But here's the thing. If any one person objects anywhere within this process, if anybody objects anywhere within this process, even after the committee, it gets blocked. Okay? It gets blocked. And, there are ways past it. After it gets blocked, like Cory just did, there's going to be a cloture vote, which requires 60 votes. Now, you would think If it had unanimous consent minus Cory, then it should be able to get 60, and that's reasonable. It should, but we'll see. But you can definitely tack this on to why the Senate's still there, not in recess yet. These were one of the things that were supposed to get done before recess. That's why it was fast-tracked. That's why it had unanimous consent. Okay, they wanted to get through before the recess. Now, it may have to wait. It may get bogged down. It may get killed altogether. We'll see what happens after the recess. So Cory goes on. He explains what his problem with this is. And I'll get into it as well.
This, to me, is the problem with Democrats in America right now, is we're willing to be complicit to Donald Trump to let this pass through when we have all the leverage right now there is to say, if you're as passionate about police as we are, then pass bills out of this body that will help the police officers in Washington, that will help the police officers in Illinois, that will help the police officers in New Jersey, that will help the police officers in Newark. Don't be complicit to the President of the United States, who we both know doesn't understand that language. Oh, please, don't hurt blue states. We are standing at a moment where our president is eviscerating the Constitution of the United States of America, and we're willing to go along with that today. No, not on my watch. I stand against this. It is a violation of our Constitution for the President of the United States to ignore the will of Congress and decide which states are eligible to grants and which are not.
Okay, I'll stop it right there. What Cory has a problem with, and he wasn't there when it was time for debate, time for objection, he wasn't there. And I'm left wondering, why didn't they contact him? Say, hey, Cory, we're going to put this through in unanimous consent. If we do that while you're not here, if we do that, are you going to object anywhere down the line? They assumed he had no problem. They assumed it. The Senate leadership on both sides assumed Cory and no one else, for that matter, would have a problem. Now, Cory wasn't there. But what's he objecting to? He added an amendment. He added an amendment that's going to add language to this so that the president and the DOJ can't weaponize this funding. That's what he's objecting to. If these all go through as is, all these bills, all these acts, if they go through as is, the DOJ, which Cory contends, and there is evidence supporting, the DOJ in the past has picked and choosed and threatened and pulled funding depending on your state's political affiliation. Okay? He's trying to avoid that. They all are kind of good with it, right? And we're going to hear from Klobuchar and Cortez Mastro, who it was their acts, right? They were responsible for putting it through. We're going to hear from them because they're left confused. But Cory's making it very clear. These acts as stand, there's no language protecting the blue states from being left out of this funding or having their funding pulled or it being weaponized against them by the DOJ. Okay? And there is evidence to support what Cory's saying. The DOJ canceled at least 365 grants totaling over $180 million in funding in 2025 alone. Funding that affected public safety, gun violence prevention, addiction recovery, and victim advocacy. That is reported by the Washington Post. In 2025 alone, they withheld $180 million plus in funding, weaponized, just politically weaponizing these funds. He's also saying these funds, Congress approved these funds, and the DOJ cannot unilaterally undo congressional funding, and he's right. But there's no language, as these stand now, to protect from that either. And he's just not going to allow it. So he put an amendment forth that got blocked to add language. And they're saying this isn't the time for amendments. This isn't the time for objections. You had your chance. And he's saying, well, I didn't actually. I wasn't here for it. And you all went through with this unanimous consent without me. But again, It's weird that they wouldn't have tried to contact him in some way to gauge how he feels about this. Would you present a block to this at any point in the process? But they didn't do that, and he didn't call them either. Nobody contacted either side. Very weird. And it's a shame to see Democrats at odds like this. They have had a pretty unified front, and it's been easy for them to be unified over the last year or so in the face of all of the, executive orders, and in the face of this crazy immigration policy, in the face of his foreign policy. It's been easy for the Democrats to be in lockstep, but now here they are very, very publicly and in a petty fashion arguing in the Senate floor. Here's Cortez Masto.
I agree. Withholding funding for law enforcement anywhere in the country, across the country, is just not acceptable, and it should not be done. My bill doesn't even talk about grant funding. There's no funding associated with it. But yet he wants to put it on my piece of legislation. This is why this is ridiculous. This is an attempt to kill all of these bills. I don't know why.
It's not, though. And I don't know why she's doing an overarching accusation like that. He wants to add an amendment. And apparently he's okay with the process taking longer. He knows full well how bogged down this will get if he does get an amendment added, or if we do have to go to cloture or debate. He knows it'll get bogged down, but he's obviously good with that. This is not an attempt to kill this funding. He wants this funding. This is an attempt by Cory to secure this funding. So I don't really agree with Ms. Cortez Masto there. And she was fairly composed, especially compared to Ms. Klobuchar. She seemed completely beside herself.
One of the things I don't understand here is that we have committees for a reason, and we have hearings for a reason. And you can't do one thing on Police Week and not show up and not object and let these bills go through and then say another a few weeks later in a big speech on the floor. There were bills we would have liked to include that we did not. And if the objection is based on some of this horror show that's going on out of the White House, I agree with that piece of Senator Booker's points. And I have been equally vociferous in taking on this administration. But all of these bills came out of the committee unanimously, and I think they deserve that support on the floor.
What I don't love about that is that she keeps, and Mastro as well, they circle back to "you had a chance," knowing full well he wasn't there. They keep circling back to "you had a chance." They are not addressing the valid points that he's raising. They're not even addressing it. They're not saying, hey, we're willing to do whatever we have to do to make sure this funding goes where it needs to go. They're acknowledging that it has been weaponized in the past, but they're not doing anything to address the potential weaponization of these 7 acts now. Cory is, they're not. So if they win their argument, and by the way, this argument went on forever. We could spend the whole show showing you clips from them being the back and forth, okay? But I think you'll agree you didn't hear either of those ladies mention anything about, well, yeah, these could be weaponized. Maybe we should do something to prevent that. Maybe Cory's got a point. No, they're like, Cory, you could have protected these acts when we, started the unanimous consent. You didn't object. He wasn't there. He wasn't there. Okay. So we're talking about Senate leadership. We're talking about Senate representation, right? And you can feel how you want to feel about both sides of that particular argument. But a lot of people on the left are a little disenfranchised with their representation in the Senate, especially after the one big beautiful bill made it through there. But there may be changes in the Senate coming. I showed you a video of James Talrico yesterday, and then I went and I talked to some people and I asked them about what they felt about him. And they felt he might have been a little heavy-handed, maybe a little bit of a holy roller, but they liked what he had to say. And everybody agrees he would be a dangerous opponent for Republicans. Well, Republicans who may have heard Mr. Talrico, it's about to get a little worse, as he was asked about his aspirations.
But there's also a big Senate race in your state next year for the seat occupied by Republican John Cornyn. Former Democratic Congressman Colin Allred is running again after losing last cycle. But what about you? How seriously are you considering a run for Senate next year?
I am seriously looking at it, but if I'm being honest with you, my full attention is here at the state capitol during this special legislative session. I mean, if we allow this power grab to go through, it's going to prevent us from making progress on all the issues we care about: healthcare, education, taxes. These are things that we're going to have to be able to do, and this power grab is stopping us from making that progress. So I'm committed to doing the job that I already have.
Okay, so he's talking about the redistricting in Texas that has been jammed in the flood relief session. I've talked about that ad nauseum, and it's worth talking about. And I'm going to talk about it tomorrow because it's progressing. It's going forward. They're doing what they want to do in Texas as usual, and it totally flies in the face of fair and balanced elections, certainly. And James is responding to that, but he said the right answer. Yeah, I'm looking at a Senate seat, but right now I'm focused on my district. Perfect answer. And Scott he heard a podcast with James on Joe Rogan, and Scott told me, look, this dude was chock full of perfect answers, perfect responses, and he even won Joe Rogan over in the end. How about that? I'm going to listen to it. I suggest you do too. I can't wait. This dude's going to be a problem for Republicans. People like him. White, straight, male, Christian. He checks all the necessary boxes a Democratic nominee for a higher office needs to check starting to have a chance. He checks them.
It's time for a quick break, then we break some more. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. You're back with Brett Breaks Things, because silence isn't an option.
I got my jet fuel there. Gotta have it. Went a little long that segment. I felt it was important to get that stuff in. I'd love to hear how you feel about what Cory Booker's doing. Give us a call. Love to hear from you. 561-270-3844. I'd love to hear from you. Let me know if you feel in agreement with Cory, or if you're wondering why he's doing what he's doing. Whatever you feel, I want to hear from it. We're going to keep it moving. Like yesterday, we're not going to spend all show on it. But after a little bit of digging, thank you, Scotty. After a little bit of digging, we've caught Trump on a pretty big lie. A new one. I know, shocker. A new one. Involving the Epstein thing. Yes, involving the Epstein thing. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it, but I want to highlight this lie because it's not being disseminated clearly for the American public, this particular lie he's caught in. It's getting, conflated and kind of shuffled to the back with all the other lies that he tells and all the other things that he's doing and the Obama distractions, what do they do to the files? Obama's a traitor, all this other stuff. Attacking, Adam Schiff, attacks. But this is getting lost a little bit. I wanted to highlight this lie a little bit. It's very disgusting. As you gain context on anything involving Trump and Epstein, it gets more and more disgusting the farther you go down the rabbit hole. It just does. He was asked recently about their split, and he's made some comments recently about their split. And the more Donnie talks, the more he can't get his lies straight. And he's talked a lot lately. Let's hear from him.
On Mar-a-Lago, you're saying that Jeffrey Epstein poached 2 of your staffers. Who were they? Were they young?
I don't want to say 2, or I don't want to say any number. You're talking about many years ago. But, yeah, he took people. And because he took people, I say, don't do it anymore. They work for me. And he took, beyond that, he took some others. And once he did that, that was the end of him. I didn't like, when they steal people, I don't like it.
When they steal people, I don't like them. Okay? And then he was asked about it on Air Force One once again, and he gave up a little bit more details about it.
Were some of the workers that were taken from you, were some of them young women? Were some of them young women? Well, I don't want to say, but everyone knows the people that were taken. And it is the concept of taking people that work for me is bad.
He was asked, were any of them
story's
young?
been pretty well out there, and the answer is yes, they were.
Yes, they were young.
Yeah.
What did they do?
In the spa.
Jobs. In the spa.
Yeah,
They worked in
people
the
that
spa.
work in the spa. I have a great spa, one of the best spas in the world at Mar-a-Lago, and people were taken out of the spa, hired by him. In other words, gone. And other people would come and complain, this guy is taking people from the spa. I didn't know that. And then when I heard about it, I told him, I said, listen, we don't want you taking our people, whether it was spa or not spa. I don't want him taking people. And he was fine, and then not too long after that, he did it again, and I said, out of here.
Mr. President, did one of those stolen, persons, that include Virginia Giuffre?
I don't know. I think she worked at the spa. I think so. I think that was one of the people. Yeah. He stole her. And by the way, she had no complaints about us, as you know. None whatsoever.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Oh, well, I do know she worked in the spa, and he stole Virginia. How dare he steal Virginia? He went, in 10 seconds, he went from, I don't know, to, yeah, he stole Virginia Giuffre from my spa, and I didn't like it. And she loved us. She never complained about us. Now, we mentioned what workers of Trump would stay in his mind. Not a like a landscaper or a maid or somebody who does, operations or repairs or, what type of worker would stick in Trump's mind? Oh, God, here we go. Here we go, man. Now, here's the timeline of Epstein. I'm just going to really quick because it's important to know the timeline we're talking about. In 2005, there was a criminal investigation after a 14-year-old admitted to their mother that Epstein had paid her for a massage. That's when Epstein's problem started, 2005. Okay? 2006, grand jury indicted him. 2007, the U.S. Assistant Attorney outlined 60 criminal indictments. Okay? Then was the Alex Acosta deal, right after that in 2007. Okay? 2008, he was arrested. He pled guilty to solicitation of prostitution, did 18 months. Released in 2009. Settled a bunch of lawsuits in 2010. In 2015, Giuffre sues Ghislaine Maxwell for lying about her, saying, she said Maxwell was the victim of Maxwell in the sexual assault. Okay, the sexual conspiracy involved Maxwell. That's what Giuffre said in a deposition, and Maxwell sued her. Maxwell called her a liar. Maxwell called her a liar, and then Giuffre sued her successfully. Okay. Just a quick update, right? You hear those dates. Here's the disgusting part, and where we catch Trump in a lie. Here's where we catch Trump in a lie. Remember, in 2007 is the last year Trump claims Epstein was a member. In 2007, he said, I kicked him out in 2007. Okay? Anyway, he's saying in 2007 he was the last year Epstein was a member. But we had detailed how their friendship had deteriorated. In 2004, Epstein had been outbid by Trump for that mansion, the House of Friendship, and that's where the friendship deteriorated. But after that, Trump had said, oh, well, he poached my people. He poached my people. But here's the problem. In 2000 was when Epstein poached Virginia Giuffre. And by the way, she was a minor then. In 2000, Virginia Giuffre was poached. They had remained friends well after 2000. So not only did he lie about when and why Epstein was no longer a member, right? He knew exactly who he was talking about when he said Epstein poached my people. He had remembered that Virginia Giuffre, the minor, had worked in his spa. He remembered that. That is who Epstein poached. Ew, dude. Like, how does this play out? Epstein's leaving the spa after hanging out with some of these young ladies, and then what, waits for her in the parking lot? Because that's where she was recruited, the parking lot. Epstein approached Giuffre in the parking lot in 2000 and recruited her to him. Maxwell actually approached her, I'm sorry, for Epstein. Maxwell actually approached her in the parking lot, said, Virginia, come work for us. A minor. A minor. This is all from, the sentencing of Maxwell. This part here is from Maxwell's sentencing. Beginning in or about the summer of 2000, the defendant and Epstein entered a new phase of their scheme to sexually abuse teenage girls. That summer, Maxwell recruited a 17-year-old girl named Virginia Roberts, now Giuffre, from the parking lot of Mar-a-Lago to provide Epstein with massages. That's just so disgusting that Maxwell would hang out in the parking lot to bring Giuffre to Epstein's residence to sexually abuse her, to pay her for massages that always ended in completion, let's just say, from Epstein. A minor. A minor. But they remained friends. Here's the thing. They remained friends. Hey, here's Giuffre with Prince Andrew and Maxwell. Remember this picture? Yeah. They remained friends for years after. The dispute over the bidding, that didn't happen until 2004. In 2007, that's when Epstein's problems really rose. As I detailed in that timeline, that was the 60 indictments out of the U.S. Attorney's Office. That's when he was kicked out of Mar-a-Lago. 2007, when the indictments popped up. Had nothing to do with poaching my people. I didn't like that. That happened 7 years earlier with a minor that Epstein then took to his mansion to have her give him massages. It's pretty disgusting that that's the employee he was talking about. That's the one he remembered 20 years later.
Breaking politics, breaking narratives, breaking news. But first, we need a coffee break. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things, pushing back, speaking up, and holding the line.
Okay, we're moving on from the Epstein thing. Okay, that's all I'm going to spend on it today. You're free from that wretchedness. And we're going to go to the subject that he'd like us to move on to, but not in the manner that he wants us to. This Obama thing hasn't gone away yet. He wants you to be talking about Obama the traitor. That's what he wants you to be talking about. He doesn't want me spending a segment fact-checking his lies once again. These more disgusting than some of the other ones lately on this. But, I mean, just the details of that timeline, the details of their little fight over Virginia Giuffre, the minor, is so disgusting. It's so disgusting. But we're going to go into the details a little bit, and we're going to hear what people are saying about this Obama treason thing, right? And it's not so much Obama that's in the crosshairs. It's those around him at the time, right? It's those around him at the time of this ICA, the intelligence community assessment that Russia tried to interfere in our election, right? That's the treason he's talking about. The weaponization of the Obama administration, the DOJ, the FBI, and the intelligence community trying to overthrow the Trump presidency by claiming that Russia interfered. That's the treason he's talking about. Some people have had stuff to say recently about this. Let's hear from celebrated pugilist Markwayne Mullin.
And that's why Attorney General Bondi was saying for months. Well, then tell me why for months she was saying that she's going to release the information tomorrow.
we made the assumption that the judges would release the order and allow the evidence that they had that it could be heard. But it's all been sealed. And so if it's been a sealed case, we can't release it until the judges allow us to release it. And you would think common sense would play. That's why they asked for transparency. We want transparency. We want the judges to have transparency in this too. But remember, there was a plea deal that was struck in 2009, way before I was in office, way before Trump was even considering to be in office, way before Pam Bondi was in office, way before Kash Patel was director. 2009, there was a sweetheart plea deal that was made underneath the Obama administration with Epstein.
Right. That's not
and that sweetheart has not been exposed.
No, it was 2000.
Not? Well, when was the case heard?
It was 2008. It was the U.S. attorney at the time was a guy named Alex Acosta. He was a Bush appointee. He went on to become President Trump's Secretary of Labor. It all took place in 2008.
Who was in office at the time?
2008, George W. Bush.
Who was in office at the time?
George W. Bush.
No, 2009 is when the case came out, and it was and Obama was in office at the time.
It's not true. Office. There it is. So Obama was in office when this Alex Acosta deal was made. He's trying to run cover first in this first part of this interview. He's running cover for this Epstein situation. He doesn't understand the difference between grand jury evidence and the Epstein files themselves, first of all. He just doesn't understand the difference. He's trying to equate requesting the grand jury evidence, which was denied, by the way. He's trying to equate that with releasing all of the Epstein files. He either doesn't understand the difference, or he's actively lying for Trump right there. And he's doing a bad job of it, conflating the two. And then he throws in Obama there for good measure. And Jake Tapper better watch his tone. Jake Tapper better watch it. He's sitting there, no. And Mullins is getting pissed off, all red-faced. And he continues.
But I'll go back to what you're saying about it wasn't true. The case was sealed in 2009. That's absolutely true. It was heard in 2008. It was sealed in 2009.
The point is that the sweetheart deal, which was completed in 2008, was under the Bush administration, U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta. That's why Alex Acosta resigned in the first Bush administration, because the Miami Herald had written this story in 2018 about how Epstein got away with so much. And then in 2019, the U.S. attorney under President Trump, Jeff Berman in the Southern District of New York, then brought charges against him. So, I mean, there is stuff to say that you could point to that say, like, President Trump did this or President Trump did that.
And remember, in 2019, President Trump and his administration called for it to be unsealed at that time, too. It went silent, and not a word was said during the Biden administration. Not a word. Nothing was said during the Biden administration.
People can look it up. The sweetheart deal was 2008 during the George W. Bush administration. But I always appreciate your coming on the show.
He's trying to say it was Obama's administration that allowed that Alex Acosta sweetheart deal. It was Obama. And Tapper's trying to say, no, dude, it was 2008. It was not Obama. It was Bush. And by the way, Acosta later became the Secretary of Labor for Trump. Little sweetheart deal for Trump's friend. Later on becomes part of Trump's administration. That's how the Trump administration works. And Jake Tapper better be careful, or Markwayne Mullin is going to pop him one. He's lucky he was on location there, or Markwayne Mullins would have showed him what's what. I played you the video. I'll play it again at some point too, of Markwayne Mullin challenging people to a fight on the Senate floor. Jason Crow on Fox News had some interesting things to say. This is yet another example of Fox News allowing dissenting opinions. More and more lately, Fox News is allowing dissenting opinions on their air, which I find really, really interesting. This shift away from just sycophantic party line, total loyal, posture in terms of Trump. They're moving away a little bit. It's very interesting to me.
Let's be really clear again about what's happening here. This is being reinvigorated and concocted because Donald Trump doesn't want to talk about the Epstein files. He doesn't want those files released. In fact, I'm sitting here right now instead of in Washington because House Republicans released the Congress. We went on recess early to avoid a vote on releasing the Epstein files. A vote, by the way, that would pass in a bipartisan way. It would pass if the vote were held today.
And I'll ask the chairman about that.
They sent us home because
they got some.
So that's what this is all about.
They did get some subpoenas done, and I'm really interested to see, now that the House Oversight has voted those out, who shows up and where we do get more information, because I think you're right. There's bipartisan call for more Epstein information.
One last key point.
Okay, quick.
One last key point. Pam Bondi briefed Donald Trump in May on the Epstein files. When did all of this start coming up? In May and June. Well, you know, you want to talk about a coincidence? Well, I don't believe in a coincidence here.
Yeah, I don't believe in a coincidence either. In May and June that's about when he found out from Pam Bondi that his names were all in the files. No, it's not a coincidence. We're going to play more of cover fire, right? More going at Obama, going at Biden, Comey, you know, people that were in the Obama administration when the ICA report comes out. I mean, they're really trying to go hard at these people and weaponizing the DOJ, all in the name of covering for Trump and this Epstein thing. And like I told you, I'm going to help it not go away. I'm going to help it build. I'm going to do my part, Tom Massey. I'm going to help it build. But I do feel it's important to know what these sycophants on the right are saying about Obama and his administration in an attempt to cover. It's important. It's not just noise. It's not just noise. And yes, Obama may be immune, but others aren't. And Lindsay, of all people, speak to it next.
We'll be back to break it all down. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. You're back with Brett Breaks Things, because democracy doesn't defend itself.
Senator, are you trying to rewrite history to distract from the Epstein matter, Senator?
No, I'm trying to let you know and the media know that we found something we didn't know before. At the end of the day, I'm not calling for a prosecution against President Obama for treason, but I am calling for an investigation. Mr. Miller also said there was no credible evidence that President Trump colluded with the Russians. For years and months and days and weeks, people had their lives turned upside down chasing the Mueller narrative that Trump was in bed with the Russians, that the Trump campaign was colluding with the Russians. The only people colluding with the Russians were the Hillary Clinton campaign and Christopher Steele manufacturing a document to get warrants against Carter Page based on lies and falsehoods.
He's thrown a lot out there at you, right? He's thrown a lot out there to try to justify this attack on Obama and his administration at the time. But here's the thing, Lindsay, you want to sit there and say, it was disproven that the Trump administration was colluding with the Russians. It was a hoax. That is not what Obama's administration found. That is not what the ICA report said. The redirection of the intelligence community analysis that they are all fired up about, it simply said, Russia tried to interfere in the election. It did not say Trump and Russia colluded. It did not say that, it didn't even say which side Russia was really interfering for. It didn't even say that. It said Russia interfered. And that has been backed up by numerous sources, numerous investigations, right? People that are currently in lockstep with Trump now. If there was only somebody who could set Lindsay straight about what that ICA said, what that analysis really said, if there was only somebody out there that understood it and could tell us clearly what that ICA report said.
There was already a Trump-appointed special counsel at the time investigating the origins of the Russia probe. It did not find any evidence
2017.
Of political interference. And, Senator, at the time, you agreed with the findings of the intelligence community. I want to play back what you said at the time.
What they're going to play, this mashup, 2017.
The Russians did it. It was the Russians who tried to interfere in our election. Every member of the committee agrees it was the Russians. They didn't change the outcome, but they did release information embarrassing to the Democratic Party. It did affect Hillary Clinton. There's only one person in Washington that I know of that has any doubt about what Russia did in our election, and it's President Trump.
What?
Senator, are you now saying that you don't believe that Russia tried to interfere in the 2016 election?
Well, what I am saying is that you left a lot out here. It's called the Horowitz Report. It's the Mueller investigation was crooked and rotten to the core. The Washington Post and the New York Times got a Pulitzer Prize for reporting on Trump's campaign's relationship with Russia. It was all BS. At the time, I didn't know any of that.
When she asked, she played that right in his face. And then he paused after they came back from that montage. He pauses and looks in the camera. I swear I can hear his thoughts. Jim Beam, don't fail me now. And then he goes on to say, well, I didn't know things. There were things I didn't know. It's just that simple. You want to flip-flop that hard? Just follow Lindsay's example. Lindsay and the Beefeater. Just follow their example. There were things I didn't know. Just that simple. Interview after interview after interview, Russia interfered. And it's pretty funny that at the time in 2017, he even went as far to say, yeah, and Russia released information that hurt Hillary's campaign. When in the previous clip, he's sitting there, no problem, sit there and say, Hillary and the Russians interfered against Trump. Hillary colluded with the Russians to derail Trump's campaign. That's what he told her just previously in that same interview. Played the clip, and in that montage from 2017, he's sitting there saying, yeah, Russia interfered, no doubt, and it hurt Hillary's campaign. And then he can just sit there and go, there were things I didn't know. Yeah, he's a piece of work, that Lindsay. He's a piece of work. And he said, I'm not talking about treason for Obama, but I want an investigation. The subtext of that, and if the investigation should find that he's, that he committed treason, if the investigation should end in a treason conviction, well then, hang him. That's the subtext. I'm not calling for a hanging. I'm only calling for an investigation that could end with his hanging. Trump spoke about Obama's immunity. We've heard him talk about it.
How do you think that the Supreme Court's ruling that benefited you on presidential immunity would apply to former President Barack Obama and what you're accusing him of doing?
It probably helps him a lot. Probably helps him a lot, the immunity ruling. But it doesn't help the people around him at all. But it probably helps him a lot. He's done criminal acts, there's no question about it. But he has immunity, and it probably helps him a lot.
Trade agreement you're looking to sign too.
He owes me big. Obama owes me big.
What are the details in the UK trade agreement you're hoping to find soon with the Prime Minister?
He owes you big while you're calling him treasonous. And he said, but it doesn't help those around him. And he's right. Presidential immunity does not help the then vice president or director of the FBI, James Comey. Doesn't help them. Doesn't help them. George Conway, Kellyanne Conway's ex-husband, George Conway, you may remember him, he had something very interesting to say about that little bit of Trump's little sounder there, about it not helping those around him. Conway he came on MSNBC and he said something pretty interesting about that part.
Actually, the people who work for him now should remember. He said that the people who work for Obama, they're not protected by the immunity decision. Well, all you people who are getting those jobs right now, working for Donald Trump, whether you be the lowliest ICE agent or Stephen Miller himself, you better watch it because you don't have immunity.
Ooh. Great point, George. That's a great point. What happens if there are investigations similar to the ones that Lindsay is calling for after Trump has left office? Or, and in the possible eventuality that the Dems retake the House and God forbid the Senate, and these investigations go forward and committees are formed and they look into the Trump administration and violations of the Constitution, violations of human rights, and they find people other than Trump culpable for violations, breaking the law. Trump's immunity won't help them. Won't help Bondi. Won't help Gabbard. Won't help Holman. Stephen Miller. None of these people will have immunity. That thought might help me sleep a little better tonight, right? That possible outcome all the way at the end of the line as we scream about Trump dismantling the Constitution, violating our human rights, getting upset, feeling like there's nothing we can do about it. A Supreme Court that is clearly at least in favor of this administration, if not out and out doing its bidding. And of course, nothing's going to happen in the House and the Senate while they have control. But that may change sooner than we all think. And what happens to the Trump team, the sycophants then? Could get kind of interesting. Another interesting thing happened, and we're just going to kind of close the show with bringing this to your attention, put a bow on this story. We talked about Emil Bove. And you saw the hearings, his nomination debates going on, people attacking him, talking about his misdeeds. Just a reminder of who Emil Bove is. He was on Trump's legal team during his New York hush money trial, and defended Trump in 2 other federal criminal cases. He has been confirmed. He has been confirmed now, officially, to the 3rd U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. Lifetime nomination. He is going to hear cases from Delaware, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. Yes, New Jersey. We're going to hear again from Cory Booker in just a second. Yes, New Jersey. 50-49, he was confirmed. 50-49. Now, don't forget, this is the guy who oversaw dismissing Eric Adams' case. It was a quid pro quo, according to whistleblowers who were there. And now there is even whistleblower evidence via audio tape of that particular meeting. Audio of Bove facilitating a quid pro quo with Eric Adams. We drop the case against you, and you get real complicit to our overarching authoritarian immigration policy in New York. You play ball with us. No pushback from you, Eric. And Eric got right on board. Right on board. And by the way, he will be one of the candidates for the New York mayoral race. As an independent, it looks like. The Dems don't want him anymore. This is also the guy who, when the first plane took off for El Salvador and another plane was about to take off full of detainees, remember that? And a judge said, stop the plane. They need to see a judge. Bring the other plane back. Don't let that second plane leave. And what did Emil Bove suggest to Trump at the time? Tell the judge to go bleep himself. That's this guy. The tell the judge to go bleep himself guy now has a lifetime appointment in the U.S. Third Circuit. Just like that. Just like that. Let's hear from some people about this. Let's hear from Booker.
This is someone who has had something I've never seen before. Hundreds of judges, hundreds of federal prosecutors and federal public defenders from both parties come forward saying that Emil Bove should not be on the Third Circuit as a judge for a lifetime position. That his temperament, using vulgarities to show that folks should disobey, the Trump administration should disobey court orders, is disqualifying him from being on the bench. That would have been one thing that bothered me, but the other thing is the fact that he has had some of the worst ethics violations of any judge I've seen come before the Judiciary Committee, holding back exculpatory evidence when he was a prosecutor. He was called by former prosecutors and former defense attorneys as the drunk driving version of a prosecutor, reckless and dangerous.
The drunk driving version of a prosecutor. And by the way, I got to be clear, Bove didn't tell Trump himself to tell the judge to go F himself. He told Trump's legal team to tell the judge to go F himself. Just an important correction. Chuck Schumer said it's a dark day. It's unfathomable that just over 4 years after the insurrection at the Capitol, when rioters smashed windows, ransacked offices, desecrated this chamber, Senate Republicans are willing to put someone on the bench who shielded these rioters from facing justice. Yeah, he attacked the prosecutors who prosecuted the J6 rioters. He attacked them, wanted them fired, defended the J6 rioters. That's who this guy is. Schumer, not happy about it. Susan Collins talked about it. I don't think that somebody who has counseled other attorneys that you should ignore the laws, you should reject the law. I don't think that individual should be placed in a lifetime seat at the bench. That was Susan Collins and Murkowski both giving dissension. That was Murkowski, rather, that said that, but Collins also pushed back. You know how much I love Sheldon Whitehouse. He had something to say about it.
Well, here at the Capitol, the Senate is in full see no evil, hear no evil mode about Trump's thug Emil Bove, who is trying to get stuffed onto a circuit court of appeals. There is yet another whistleblower about his prosecutorial misconduct, and the Republicans just don't want to hear it. They don't want to know about it. They don't want to listen to this person, and they're going ahead with his nomination.
Yep, they're going ahead. And he went on to say, yeah, another case of Republicans hear no evil, see no evil, right? But not everybody dissented, right? There are those who will greenlight, co-sign absolutely anything this administration wants done, no matter how despicable, how in the face of justice these things fly. There are some that will run to the microphone, run to the camera to defend Trump's administration and its position. As I say that, who are you thinking about? Who would come out here and get all excited about defending something like this? You got some names kicking around in your head. I'll give you a second. If you said Kennedy, you're right.
And I have repeatedly examined Patel, Bondi, all of President Trump's nominees. So I asked Bove about it, and he said I didn't do it. The other point I'd make, I know we have a lot of whistleblowers, but let me see how I can put this case. If everyone is a racist, no one's a racist.
Excuse me?
If everyone's corrupt, no one's is corrupt.
What?
If my Democratic colleagues are going to trot out whistleblowers 2 and 3 at a time, every time we have a nominee that they don't agree with, they sort of lose their efficacy. And that's the situation we're in right now.
Well, I mean...
That is classic gaslighting. Everybody they nominate is corrupt. And then he says, you call all our nominees corrupt. And if they weren't corrupt, John, then there wouldn't be whistleblowers with evidence against them. What do you mean if everybody's corrupt, then nobody's corrupt? No, if everybody's corrupt, then they're all friggin' corrupt. Hard stop. The reason the Dems are saying Bove is corrupt is because he's corrupt. He's claiming that these are great nominees that the Dems are just calling corrupt. No, Mr. Kennedy. Bove is corrupt. Mike Walls is a liar. Haba is corrupt. Whistleblower testimony proves it. They're corrupt because they are.
They'll try to repair the narrative, but Brett Breaks Things will be back tomorrow to break it all down.